I go, you say you promise we'll all be together Christmas morning, then okay. And it seemed normal then for me to let her do that because that's how the arguments as a child, that I remember, it was always a few days and then like she'd either go to my Nana's or my Aunt Carol's or my Aunt Sherry's or something like that, and then my dad would go chase her, and get her back or whatever. And that's just how that always ended up. So I was just looking at it like that.
Did you think anything of it when she came and asked you?
Yes, I did. I had to, and I started to tell her about my thing with the psychic and all that. And she's like, "Come on, your dad's not going to kill himself." And that's when I was like, "Oh, okay." But I think that we should be concerned and at least be, because this is all when that was told, to me. So I want to, because then
be there at least.
My dad was, I guess, calling me, came to my house. He came to my house the day of Christmas, like at 5:30 in the morning. And that was the second time he had ever cried to me. And he didn't know where my mom was. He thought I knew. I go, I don't know where she's at, and in fact, he was telling me, hey, I love you, I'm sorry I never told you, and sorry I never said sorry that I paid you less than all the other guys, because he always told me, I don't want to show favoritism. I'm like, what the fuck, if it was my son, yeah, he's my son, right? This is my company. Yeah, I'm gonna pay him accordingly. That's how I would have did it. Like, who cares what they think? As long as they still are the good workers that they are, and they stay with me, then I'm gonna take care of them too. But look, it's my son. Sorry, he's gonna be in front of you probably before whatever. But anyhow, he didn't do that. And it always felt like, why are you treating me less than them? It was like, that's where it was always like, I was always struggling to be like some, big for him, and never got it. But, so he comes to the house, he's crying to me, and he's telling me, that's when he does tell me that he knew where my mom was and who she was with. He didn't really know where she was. He showed me a phone number, and he goes, this is who your mom's with. And I seen the phone number, and I went, whoa, because for the last 2 months, my mom had been paging me to that number every so often, at the end of the day, after work, before we went home and had dinner or whatever. And so then that's when that was confirmed. I was like, oh, okay. So then he told me he knew whose number it was, which was a guy, it's her husband now. It's a guy that he had a courier business 2 doors down from our company, in the complex. And it was just 2 guys, his buddy was like the secretary or whatever, but it was his business, and that's what he had, was a courier service. And he did pretty well, but anyhow, that he was younger than my mom, like by 5 years, 6 years, something like that. And that's who she's married to now. Completely different from my dad, but yeah. So, and I had promised my dad that, because I let him out of the house. He wanted to sleep there. He wanted a blanket and a pillow, and I was still mad at him. So I was giving him some bullshit reason that I didn't have any extra pillows or blankets, when he knew that was bullshit, because he knew that I had everything, and I thought I was giving him the advice that he would have given me, which was, just go home, relax, take a shower or bath or whatever, and wait for the phone to ring, me call, or me to show up. Mom said she promised we'd all be together Christmas morning, and whenever we never have not been, and so I was just going with that. Thought I was being the bigger man for him, trying to, take that role on as somebody that was strong, and gave the good advice. But that's when he did leave. But he was telling me before he left that, he knew about my mom always giving me extra money and that, credit cards or whatever. He knew all that. He let her do that, he said, because he figured that was, she needed to do that.
For herself.
For herself, to be able to give me something. And I was like, well, that's all fine and dandy, Dad, but it's not the way, you should have given it to me. I wanted to, because I didn't, do you think about that? Do you know what it does to somebody that your mom's, basically you're stealing from Dad, and I was always nervous of what if he knew, it would be, that's a tense, excuse my language, that's a fucked up feeling for a kid, and then even like my whole life at that time, that's what I always went through, did I take it? Yeah, hell yeah, I did. Because I felt like I was entitled to it.
Deserved it, yeah.
And he did tell me that morning. He said, "You do deserve it. You deserved more." But and I'm like, whoa. But I still pushed him out of my house to go home. And when he was crying to me, he goes, I've always loved you, and I love you, and I always have and always will. But he was wanting me to give him an answer to something, and this is a real serious thing too, because he was like, well, let's just say I need an answer to something. I go, what do you need? What do you want me to answer? He goes, well, let's just say I wasn't here. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that conversation. You know what I mean? We're not doing that. You're not going to ask me that. I'm not going to answer it. And you're going to go home and do what I just said. And he goes, God damn it, I need to know. And I go, all right, fine. What do you want? He go, I want to know that you'd be able to go on and still take care of the business and live life. You know what I mean? Be good. Take care of, things. And I go, okay, let's just say something did happen to you and you weren't here.
Tearing up and shit.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I can't even,
shit.
As far as me crying, I'm a real sensitive person, but this has been something that has, it took me a long time to be mad at him. And because today I say he punked out, he bitched out, and that was very hard for me to get to, but I got to that point, So I gave him his answer, and he went home, and I knew my mom was gone. I didn't know where she was. She was with this guy who she's married to now, Roger, and my dad's best friend's girlfriend, but at the time I don't think my dad's best friend, and he had a general contractor's business, my dad's buddy. He's the guy that always went fishing with, because they always went fishing in Mexico, and we went hunting in Mexico. That's what my dad liked to do, and I always went with him. And then it was me and my dad and him and his son, and then like another guy or another couple guys. So she was there. Her name was Paula. She was the only one at the house. I knew she was there. Now, that was about 5:30 in the morning when my dad came to my house and he left. It was about, I don't know, it was just getting light out. I'm not sure exactly the time. I know it was still kind of dark, I think. And Paula had called me and called my house, and I answered the phone, and she's like crying, this and that, and I'm like, look, what's going on? Or no, she's like crying, but she's trying to say, look, don't worry, I'm here with your dad, and everything's fine with this and that. And I go, look, where's my dad at right now? Because she was an alcoholic. So I knew that she wasn't doing something right, you know. Like, where's my dad at right now? She goes, well, he walked out back. Well, in the back of that house, that was the center house in the back of a cul-de-sac. So it's always the house that's got like 6 neighbors, you know what I mean? So it was a big backyard. We had a detached garage. In fact, the garage, when we got the house, we sealed that up and turned it into a den with a big brick fireplace and everything. But she goes, he walked out back. I go, can you see him? And she goes, no. And I had been told that my dad was carrying one of his guns, which was actually one of my guns. All the pistols that were in the gun safe, he had a big Pony Express gun safe that I installed in the living room for him, and I bolted it to the floor. I had to go underneath the house. I mean, no one was gonna move that thing. But it was one of the guns that were mine. It was the Colt 357 revolver. He had that with him, and he was, I guess, like, basically people seen that he had it, you know, and he was trying to find my mom through that weekend, you know. And so I go, you can't see him. I go, look, you go find my dad now. I'm yelling at her, go find my dad. But then, at the time, it was the gun. The gun went off, right? I knew, right, and I'm on the phone. But she starts freaking out, and she's screaming and crying. I go, Paula, still to me, denying the fact that that's what it was, because I'm like thinking there's no possible way, right? That because like I told the psychic on the phone, if you knew my dad, you know why I'm saying this, that you're a fake, you know, you're not real, because he would never do that. Well, so I was telling her, look, that's probably just some kids in the neighborhood that have fireworks from the 4th of July or whatever. They just have some leftovers. I mean, that's all that was. But it wasn't. It was, you know, it was the gun. And he put it in his mouth behind the garage and blew the back of his head off. I didn't go to the house. Now, I didn't even, like, that conversation was done. I got off the phone with her, you know what I mean? Like, don't worry, you know, whatever. Boom. I went back to bed at that time, laid with, you know, my girlfriend, and then we had gotten up when it was light out, and now it's about pushing 8 o'clock or so, 8:30 or something like that, and it was about, or maybe like 7:45. A buddy, my best friend, one of my other my best friend for years, but he was 5 years older than me. He lived the same street, but he lived on this cul-de-sac. They were like they weren't right across from each other. They were offset, Kinsey Street. And he had never been to my house. I'd only been in that house for 2 months. It was one of my grandpa's rentals. And now my grandpa, okay, well, that's another part of the story, but so it was weird for him to show up, like, well, how did you know where I live? But, you know, it's obvious. I mean, just look through whatever, something at my mom and dad's house, someone knew, you know, and, but I could see his eyes were like, he had been crying or whatever, but he was holding it in, and, you know, I could see his eyes were red, like, at some point I kind of maybe thought, okay, maybe it's Christmas, maybe he smoked a little bit of weed or something. But he goes, hey, get in the truck, we got to talk. And because he had a Chevy Dually, and I go, look, Sean, I'm getting ready to leave with my girlfriend and take little Nicholas, her son, to her mom's house in Canyon Country, where I used to, you know, basically where I used to live. And he goes, put the boy inside, get in the fucking truck, we need to talk. I'm like, all right, you know, whatever, okay, cool, whatever, all right. So I get in the truck, and he puts it in reverse, and he don't even get out of my driveway. He's like, your dad just killed himself. And I was just like, it was like, just, no. But he proceeds to take off and go driving around the block. Now, my girl, by the time we went around the block, my girl was already in her car with her son, little Nicholas, who was only like 4 or 5, I forget exactly, 4, 5. And no, I think he wasn't even 5 yet, he was only like 4 or 3.5. But she takes off in her car, so I'm like, look, you go chase her down, please. So he did. And right before we get to the 405 freeway, now we're like, that's a couple miles from my house, he caught up to her, and I'm yelling out the window of his truck, my dad just killed himself, you dumb bitch. And she just stopped. She just starts crying too, and she's like, what? And I get out of his truck, and I was just gonna like get out and slam the door, and he goes, hey, he goes, you all right? I go, I don't know. You know what I mean? He goes, what are you gonna do? I go, I don't know. He goes, would you please call me later? I go, okay. And he goes, remember when you said back when you had the problem or whatever with the cocaine or whatever, and you were thinking about killing yourself or whatever? And I go, yeah. He goes, I'm really glad you didn't do it. And I go, yeah, me too. But Sean, I gotta go. And he's like, all right, and he goes, you sure you're okay? I go, I don't know, but I gotta go do what I gotta do. And so I get in her car and I tell her, let's go back to the house, so I can get my truck or the Jeep I built for my dad, because I built it was a CJ7 1985 CJ7 Jeep that I took the straight 6 motor out, and I took a Mustang engine and I put it in the Jeep. The Jeep did wheelies and everything, and it was badass, scary to drive. But I built that for my dad, and I had it there at the house with me, and so I took that day and went to her mom's house, dropped Nicholas off, and that's when she went inside and grabbed her mom, and she's like, we gotta go. We're just dropping Nicholas off. And she's like, what happened? And then she tells her mom, and her mom comes running to me like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm going, I don't even know. She's like, look, you gotta go to your mom. I'm like, yeah, okay. I don't even know where mom is, My first thing was to run to the house, but I didn't want to, because I knew what I would do. I would want to be like, I would want to see everything, you know what I mean? And I would probably want to hurt somebody, like Paula or something. And so I stayed away. I the whole day, all I did was drive around, didn't know where to go. I just kind of drove around, and there was nobody on the roads. It's Christmas Day, In fact, I remember the last spot I stopped was Dick Allen's motorcycle shop. He had jet skis there, and, it was Kawasaki, it was Yamaha, he had Harleys there, he had KTM, Husqvarna, he had everything. But Dick Allen was my dad's friend, and so I'm in the parking lot of that shop, and just in the front of it, parked in the Jeep, and just sitting there. And finally, I remember my pager was going off, but I wasn't answering it. It was my mom, she's wanting to, I didn't know what to say. Finally, I answered and called, and that's when my dad's friend that was lived in Chino, California. He got on the phone and he's like, look, get your fucking ass to the house. Your mom needs you, this and that. I'm like, look, Paul, for one, don't fucking speak to me like that, but I'll be there, And I hung up and I said, okay. Well, as I'm pulling up to the house, the water in the gutter before the driveway was still red, and there was brain matter, a couple of chunks that were like, didn't get that, they were still there. They didn't clean it up. Somebody cleaned it up, obviously. I guess it was one of my dad's buddies, one of the owners of Figueroa Plastering. He was like the first guy on the scene besides Paula that saw my dad. And so he cleaned up from the back of that garage all the way down the side of the house and the front of the, the whole driveway and everything. But yeah, I looked down and it was just, it was to me because I didn't see my dad go. It was very hard for like months after that, even years, where I always thought I seen a truck, a work truck that looked like his or something, and with a guy with full gray hair and a full gray beard. To me, I was thinking it was him. Even after the funeral, you know what I mean? I always had that. It was weird. Like that always happened for a long time, and I can't remember when it actually stopped, but it did. Now, let's see. So I went in the house, and there's everybody's. There's like, I mean, not everybody because that would have been like thousands and thousands of people, but there was the guys that worked for us, and they lived like an hour and a half away, even from my dad's house, just different directions. That was Bobby and LJ. They were there. They were both there, and then there was, everybody was there. That was, in my dad's immediate family as far as or for work. Everybody was there, and my grandparents, my dad's mom and dad, they lived 2 streets down, the same neighborhood. They were out of town. They were in Bullhead City at the time, I think, or Bullhead. No, they might have been. It was either Bullhead City or they were in St. Louis because that's where my dad was from. That's where they were from. But I remember that they got home that morning while I was at the house. They got home or actually not that morning, that afternoon, and we were told, oh, they just got home. Well, that's when my mom's like, well, we got to go over there. You going to go with me? And I didn't go. I go, no, can you go? Or no, I did go, but I did go. I remember I went. But she took them into the other room and told them without me there. I think, I don't remember. But my grandpa, my grandma lost it, but grandpa was like, he lost it too because they were close. But he said, I always knew this was gonna happen. Like he always said, he goes, I always knew something like this was gonna happen. Like he would do that. My grandpa always had a girlfriend other than my grandma. And the whole family knew about it, but nobody said anything to grandma. My grandma was Catholic, strict Catholic. But my grandpa didn't live his life like that, and nobody else did either, but grandma did. She always went to Sunday Mass and Christmas Mass and all that. In fact, the house that I was renting from my grandma didn't even know he had that house because he got that house with his girlfriend. Shoot. We'd put a roof on it, and it had hardwood floors, My rent, I didn't even have to pay for it. My mom paid the rent to my grandpa through the business. It was I don't know. I had a good life that way. I did. He was a good provider. He just wasn't the best dad, I guess. And I wanted to be closer. And I think he wanted to be closer too. But I don't know. It didn't. Either he didn't know how to. I was waiting. I wanted him. He didn't know how to go about it. I guess And I was always. I'd found out, and somewhere in junior high, because I was always kind of shy. But then in junior high, after junior high, like my ninth grade is when I started like changing, where it was like I was like always like I was very outgoing. You know what I mean?
More outgoing.
Because everybody says I'm an extrovert. I'm not an introvert. Now, when I did drugs, that's when I turned into an introvert. Right. So that happened, and then it was, we went back to the house, and I go, look, this is all I know. So we're going to continue with the business. This is what he would want. This is what, this is just why this is what we're going to do. He goes, but we're going to take 2 weeks off, and then we're going to go back to work. And I looked over and I go, you guys got that? And they go, yep. I go, I'm sorry guys, but we have to take 2 weeks off. And they're like, we understand. But that was hard for them because, they live paycheck to paycheck. So it was like I said, I go, I'm sorry, but that's what's got to happen. And then we went back to work. When we went back to work, like that first day, I was doing my rounds, and when I got to the one job, it was a condo complex. That, in fact, it was one that was a $500,000 job that only took a month. I climbed the ladder, I'm up on the roof, and that's when I was always used to, I would always be able to turn and go, okay, this is what I'm doing, Dad, this is what's going on, this and that, here, is there anything you want to change, or what? And then, or I would get, why are you late, this and that, just something in my ear, that I missed that. And it was so I just broke. I lost it. The foreman of our hot mop crew that was there, Carlos, he's the one that called into the office and was like, Duke's he's lost it. I don't know, he needs some help. And so they called me into the office, and that's when LJ was he was our sales rep that my dad kind of tried to teach, and we did. He just wasn't he wasn't what my dad wanted him to be. He was too soft. But he was a good guy, and he did everything my dad asked to. Now he goes, I got this. Take as much time as you need. Everything will be here when you're ready. He goes, but you need to take some time. I didn't know when I tried to go back that him and then Bobby, the other foreman, everybody just kind of kissed my mom's ass, and she backed all them, and it wasn't at all the way it was when my dad was there, because those guys were actually working. You know what I mean? They just it was, and then they wouldn't even listen to me. They would talk to me like I was just some punk kid. And I was like, oh, that's how it is, huh? All right, well, F you. And so I went to the office, excuse me, I wasn't. I just collected a check every week, and went home. And in fact, I moved from my house I was renting from my grandpa. Because my mom moved out, she goes, I knew, at that time I knew what happened, but I didn't know where she was. And because that's another thing. When my dad left that morning before he did what he did, I promised my dad that I would basically kill this guy. That's what I said I would do. I'll take care of it, Dad, don't worry. Whether he dies or not, I didn't know, but I'll take care of it, I never did that. I never did it because it was something I wanted to do for Dad, and it bothered me that I didn't do it for Dad, because it was I always did everything for Dad, anything he wanted. And so it was, but it really wasn't, I wasn't a violent guy, Could I be? Yes, very, very much so, but that's not me. That was never me. I let my mom, whatever, I respected her, I wanted her happy, so I let him go, and he never became, I tried to be this man's friend through the years, but he never would talk to me. He had a business, he didn't even really want me to work for him, per se, or he never tried to fix anything, help me, or whatever at all. And he was just almost like he was disgusted that I was even around, Diddy sometimes would talk like he was a friend or he's, but it wasn't until there was a problem and then my mom and then my mom would hey, But and in fact, he even tried to tell me one time that oh, you can't live as of the first when you get back from your wherever you're going for New Year's with your girlfriend. When you get back, you gotta move out of the house. I'm like, dude, thinking, yeah, okay. Try to wait till my mom hears this, you know what I mean? But I moved out anyways. But now that's way years later. But
Good question. Did you ever hold any resentment towards your mom based on just kind of how things played out?
I did because of, I mean, I do. I love my mom. My mom's my best friend. I will say this. There are things that she did the best she could. She always did with what she had. They didn't do right, I don't think, as far as like, because I see people today with their kids where if they're in their 20s or whatever, they're setting them up with big amounts of money to maybe start a business or a house or whatever, you know, and it wasn't that way when it was like, okay, why? And then even when I was, even when my mom, like when it was just her and I, okay, let's sell the house in the valley here. Okay, well, let's I think she should have given me some of that money, and to do something with it. Her reason being is that she knew I was out running amok, doing drugs, selling drugs at those years, and she didn't know, if I would do right with it. And I understand that, but yet that's why I was doing the drugs, kind of like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, come on. So I will say that, but I would never tell my mom, hey, look.
I think that might be your phone.
Yeah, it is. I would never admit or like tell her, hey, mom, she even will say this right now. She'd go, like, I know you hate me or something, you're mad at me or whatever. I go, Mom, I'm not mad at you. I love you. I'm sorry. I'm the one that was a jerk because I haven't seen my mom. Like, I just seen her at Christmas, but not even for a whole 24 hours. Only for a very short time, and I left. But that's another part of the story. Like I said, there's a couple books that could be written here. Because it's very very tragic, very sad. There's lots of stuff that I've gone through with the girlfriends that I had when my dad was alive, the one girl, but like the girlfriend that I've just had the last 8 years. The only woman in my life that has I never thought in a million years that anybody would ever say or do the stuff she's done, to anybody. I just don't understand it. But like I said, it's another chapter of my story, I guess. I think it's very relevant for you to hear, but there's things that I know I can't blame anybody but myself. But I mean, come on, there's at some point, doesn't anybody else take any kind of, doesn't anybody else go, you know what, if I wouldn't have did this, like my ex, if I wouldn't have did this or said this, maybe that person wouldn't have reacted or felt the way they felt to do the things they did. I mean, those things matter.
No, they do.
It's not, you can't just say to someone, oh, well, you had a choice. Should have been stronger. Bullshit, man. I mean, there's things that are emotions. I'm a very emotional person, very sensitive, but I'm very tough and very just direct. Like I'm black and white kind of. I mean, there is grays, and don't get me wrong. I'm that type of guy as well. But when it comes to like rules, is per se, or like procedures, I'm like by the book. That's how I am when I'm sober, it's just. That's my dog. Yeah, he's my buddy, like my kid basically.
Do you have any kids yourself?
Huh?
Do you have any kids yourself?
No, I don't. I've always wanted to have a daughter. I wanted a daddy's girl, and I never had. Because everything that happened, I never stayed with anybody that I guess that I wanted to have that daughter with. And I don't know, it's sad, but I've always been told that I would, they saw me being a good father to somebody else's kid or kids. And I thought that was going to happen with my just recent girlfriend of 8 years. She had a son, or has a son, but I knew him from when he was 10 until he turned 18 this past July, and the kid hated me.
Shoot.
But that's because of the way his mother handled all of our relationship. How she handled me. She didn't even take me to anybody that she knew. That was very, very, and she thinks that didn't affect me. You know, I mean, that stuff affects somebody, especially when I'm one that I lead with my heart, you know, and I can't help it. It's who I am. 9 times out of 10, is it going to get crushed? Most likely, because that's just how that is, you know. I'm very loving, very trusting, you know, as far as when you become my friend, and then I'm like, I trust right away, and then, or I believe in somebody, and then you're not supposed to expect anything from anybody, and I've learned that. Well, though I guess I set myself up for failure because I do things for somebody extra things, and I'm expecting a different outcome, and it never happens really.
Even if it's not the outcome, I feel like sometimes people don't even treat you
right. That's what I mean.
as if you did anything for them at all.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like
exactly.
It's not that I want anything back for what I'm doing, but
yeah, and it's like, you know, I mean, I was shot in 2002 with a 45. I've been shot too with a 45, and I saved one of my own buddies, like youngsters. You know what I mean? And this is after I've been to prison and stuff because in prison, I joined up, became a skinhead, which I say to this day was never me, you know. But I was always the type of person that I could be the guy, because I had friends of all races my whole life, you know, younger. So it was weird when I went to jail. What do you mean I can't sit with them? What do you mean I can't eat? You know, that was weird for me. But yet I didn't want to be like attacked and I didn't want to be told what to do. So I was always easy for me to either become the boss anywhere I went. And so that's what I did, you know, and it's kind of crazy because yeah, I mean, I was the guy that someone would leave, and then I was there, I would get handed, they'd say the keys, you know, it's just a term, I got the keys to the yard. And everybody always liked it when I had it, because I kept things calm, you know, and it wasn't about fighting each other. It was about coexisting and everybody taking care of each other, and you know, I respected the other guys that did that. In fact, today I will say that I've gotten a lot of love from all other races, you know, more so than my own people sometimes.
If you don't mind me asking, what's like the highest level of the yard that you've been on?
Oh, I've been level 4, level 3, you know, I mean, I've been on all of them. But I've gone to fire camp too, you know, and yeah, when I paroled last, because I discharged 2 numbers. I had a J number and a V number.
Can you explain the J number and the V number?
J98613 is the number. That's your prison number. You know, it's just like your booking number if you were in jail. But it's your prison number. When you get there, you get a number for the first time. You keep that number until you discharge parole someday. But most people don't. And I discharged when I was fighting a case in LA County, and then I ended up taking a sentence and accepted the deal. And when I got to prison, I got another number. It was a V number, so that's why I got that. But like I said, I'm one of the guys that can say I did discharge. You know, got off parole, and I was able to tell the cop, any officer, no, you can't search my car. You know, and that was a good feeling because I never had that before. That was a really good feeling. And yeah, it was after that I never got pulled over, you know, especially after I got my BMW because yeah, you want to conclude this into
Yeah,
a
yeah.